Hello everyone. So today we'll be starting with chapter 3, which is constitutional design. So let's see what are we going to study in this chapter. We noted in the previous chapter that in a democracy the rulers are not free to do what they like. There are certain basic rules, certain basic rules that citizens and the government have to follow. All such rules together are called constitution. So now there whoever is governing the country, they cannot just make their own rules, and there are certain rules that both the citizens and the government have to follow, and all these rules together are, they are called constitution. As a supreme law of the country, the constitution determines the right of citizens, the power of the government, and how the government should function. So it tells about the rights, the powers, and about the function, how it has to be done. In this chapter, we ask some basic questions about the constitutional design in a democracy. That how a constitution, comes up and how it's made. Why do we need actually? The question is important. That why do we need a constitution? How are the constitution drawn up, and who designs them, and in what way? What are the values that shape the constitution in democratic states? Once a constitution is accepted, can we make changes later as required by the changing conditions? So can we change the constitution with time, and if so, then how? What are the conditions? In one recent instance of designing constitution for a democratic state is that of South Africa. We began this chapter by looking at what happened there and how the South Africans went about this task of designing their constitutions. We'll see that how South Africa, they designed their constitution. Thus then we turn to how the Indian constitution was made. Then we will talk about that how our constitution came into existence, and what its foundational values are. So what are our foundational values, and how it provides a good framework for the conduct of citizens life and that of government, not only for us but also for our government. So we are here. Yep. Democratic constitution in South Africa. So let's see, let's read about the society of South America and its constitution. This person, you see this photo, he's Nelson Mandela. So just like we have Gandhi, South Africa has Nelson Mandela. Let's read about. I have fought against white domination and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of democratic and free society in which persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunity. So we look what is important. We are talking about harmony, and we are talking about equal opportunity, and we are talking about domination. That no, whether it is white or black, nobody should be should dominate. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. So he's saying that these are the values that he lives for, and he says that one day, and we will even achieve it. But it needs to be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. So he's saying that these all the things, whether he's talking about domination, of one community, or he's talking about that no community should dominate, whether they're white or black. He's talking about harmony. Talking about equal opportunity, and he's saying this is what I what I live for, and this is what I want to achieve, and I am even prepared to die for these values, because these values are my ideal for the ultimate goal, he means to say. So we can see that how how much importance that Mr. Nelson Mandela gives to these values, that he's even prepared to die for it. This was Nelson Mandela's being tried for treason by the white South African government. So he and seven other leaders were sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964, and for daring to oppose the apartheid regime in his country. He spent for the next 20 years, 8 years, 20, even 5 years, even 1 year is a long time. And just imagine that somebody spending 28 years of his life in one of the most dreaded prisons of South Africa, which is in Robben's Island. So here you can see a signboard emblematic of this tense relation of the apartheid era 1953. South African History Online. Danger. Natives, Indians, and coloureds. If you enter these premises at night, you'll be listed as missing. Armed guards shoot on sight. Savage dogs devour the corpse. You have been warned. So see, can you read the danger sign? And it's for only for three types of people, for the natives, Indians, and colored. So this is not for the white people. That's clearly is written. Sign. So what is it? Okay. Sign on Durban Beach in English, uh, Afrikaans, and Zulu. In English, it reads City of Durban under Section 37 of the Durban Beach Bylaws. This bathing area is reserved for the sole use of the members of the white race. So these, it's written in English. It's sorry here this okay. It's written in English. It's written in Afrikaans. These are the languages spoken in Africa. And the third is Zulu, which is spoken by the native African people. Along with Africans is usually spoken by maybe the white community also, who have then the next generations are also there in Africa. So you can see. So now let's study. So we are here. Struggle against apartheid. Let's see what was this thing and what it means. Apartheid was a name of a system of racial discrimination. So we now it is about the racial system, racial discrimination, which was only unique in South Africa. The white Europeans imposed a system on South Africa. During the 17th and the 18th century, the trading companies from Europe occupied it with arms and force in the way they occupied India. So similarly, like we were a colony of British. So were the South Africa was also a British colony. But unlike India, a large number of whites had settled in South Africa and became the local rulers. But unlike our country, where yes, the this thing, the Europeans, they came up and set up the industries and other things in India. But in Africa, these whites, they came and became the local rulers who would rule. So the system of apartheid divided the people and labeled them on the basis of their skin color. So imagine you are being labeled. See, this is brown, okay? So you're being labeled on your skin color. The native people of Africa are black in color. So usually the people, native people who are indigenous to that place, or who were actually, before the whites came in, they were there. So they are usually black in color, because that's the geographical location that makes them have that color. They made up about three-fourth of the of the population, and were called black. So they're the people who had black skin color. They were called blacks. Besides these groups, there were mixed races who were called colored, and people who migrated from India. And there were also people who had this kind of color, the ones like us, the Indians who had migrated from India to South Africa and mixed, who had they were not whites, but they were mixed. Maybe like they were children of two people from two, maybe they might one parent may be white and other might be of other color, maybe not white itself, but maybe brown from India or black from the native. Okay. The white rulers treated all not whites as in inferior. So if you are not white, then you are inferior. The not whites do not have voting rights, and you will not even have voting rights. The apartheid system was particularly oppressive for the blacks. They were forbidden from living in white areas. They could work in white areas only if they had a permit. Train, buses, schools, hospitals, colleges, libraries, cinema halls, etc. So, matlab, you can see that all the facilities which were available, to talk about, whether you talk about public toilets, were all separate for whites and blacks. This was called segregation. So this is what segregation means. You're segregating the use of facilities on the basis of color. They could not even visit the churches where the whites for worship. We say that one place where all, we've always heard this saying that you all are equal before the eye of course, law. It has to be there if you're a democratic country. And also there is a saying that you all are equal before the eye of God. You all are children of God. But they are here, according to them, this apartheid system, even the churches will be separate, whether you are for Christians, sorry, will be separate for blacks and whites and mixed people. So even there's a lot of segregation. Blacks could not form association or protest against the terrible treatment. So if you're given, you could not even protest against against anything wrong which is being done, or form associations. Since 1950, the blacks, colored, and Indians fought against the apartheid system. They launched protest marches and strikes. The African National Congress was an umbrella organization that led the struggle against the policies of segregation. So this was this, and maybe the local politician committee or the party, African National Congress, which uh, protested against the policies of segregation and etc. This included many workers' union and the Communist Party. Many sensitive whites also joined the African National Congress to oppose the apartheid and play a leading role in the struggle. Several countries denounced. Matlab, they did not agree, and they like said that this is not a system. This is such, they criticized it, apartheid system, as unjust. And yes, of course it is unjust. You are just segregating people on the basis of their skin color, which one has no role to play in. You cannot choose the skin color of your body. How can you do that? That's by birth. You have no control. But the whites racist government continued to rule by detaining, torturing, killing thousands of, so, but it did not bother them. They continued torturing, killing and detaining people just because they were whites, or they sorry, I'm sorry, not because they were white, because they were black and colored people. Make a poster on life and struggle of Nelson Mandela if available. Read some portion of his autobiography, The Long Walk to Freedom, in the classroom. So it is his autobiography, his life, how the days of his struggle and everything, what happened in his life. So if you want, you can read this book. And yeah, like the important parts, of his struggle and everything, and we can even discuss it out in class if you want. So, towards the new constitution, let's read that. As protests and struggles against apartheid had increased, the government realized that they could no longer keep the black under the rule through repression. So now the government realized that they cannot keep the blacks and under their rule through repression. They cannot more suppress those people. The white regime changed its policy. So if you know that you cannot rule any people through the same policy now, so of course you cannot change those policies. Discriminatory laws were repealed. Ban on political parties and restrictions on the media were lifted. After 28 years of imprisonment, Nelson Mandela walked out of the jail as a free man. So after 28 years of jail in jail, just for fighting for that system of apartheid, which did not even make sense at all in the first place, that you are just being segregated on the skin, or on the color of your skin, which one has no control absolutely. So finally, at the midnight of 26th April 1994, the new national flag of the Republic of South Africa was unfurled. Unfurled, मतलब ऐसे मतलब ऐसे होना मतलब फैलाया गया था, making the newly born democracy in the world. So on 26th April 1994 was the birth of a new nation. Okay. The apartheid government came to an end, paving a way for the formation of multiracial government. So, the system of apartheid came to an end and a multiracial government. Matlab, whether you are white, whether you are black, whether you are mixed, whether you are Indian, all of them could be part of the government. Multi matlab many. How did this come about? Let us hear Mandela, the first president of New South Africa, on this extraordinary transition. So, let's read about that. How did this happen? Historical enemies succeeded in negotiating a peaceful transition from apartheid to democracy exactly because we were prepared to accept the inherent capacity for goodness in the other. My wish is that South Africans never give up on the belief in goodness, that they cherish the faith in human beings is a cornerstone of our democracy. So imagine somebody being in jail for so many years and still, speaking out such kind words. After the emergence of the new democratic South Africa, black leaders appealed to fellow blacks to forgive the whites of the atrocities they had committed while in power. Can you forgive somebody who did bad to you? Do you can you, or have you ever forgiven somebody who's done bad to you? How easy or hard it is to it is for you to forgive somebody who's hurt you, who's troubled you. So think on that. They said, let us build a new South Africa based on equality. So he's saying, this person, he's saying that let's build a new Africa on the values of equality of all races, men, women, on democratic values, social justice, human rights. So this is very important. Even after going through so much, they want the new South Africa to have values of equality, social justice, democratic rights, and human rights. They partly rule the party that ruled through oppression and brutal killings, and the party that led the freedom struggle sat together to draw up a common constitution. So both, the previous government and the both the part when say the parties, matlab the previous government who actually troubled the natives or mixed races and Indians who were part of South Africa, they were part of one party, and whereas the other party was the white men, the who were going. They all came together, sat together to form the constitution for the new South Africa. After 2 years of discussion and debate, they came out with one of the finest constitution the world has ever had. This constitution gave its citizens the most extensive rights available in any country. Together, this decided that in the search for solutions to the problems, nobody should be excluded. No one should be treated as a demon. Demon matlab bhoot, or we say chudail, or yes, demon matlab shaitan. They agreed that everybody should become part of the solution, whatever they might have done or represented in the past. So whatever you might have done in the past, let's all forget that and move on in life. The preamble to the South African Constitution, see page 50, sums up this page. So we've seen, how even after being troubled by so much by the whites, they still have the intention that okay, whatever it's done, let's start with a fresh fresh things. What should have happened in South Africa if the black majority had decided to take revenge on the whites? So, about all the oppression and exploitation, then there would have been no difference, between the local who were to form the new South Africa and the whites who just did. There would have been no difference. One, they were prioritizing whites, so these natives would have prioritized themselves and made rules and policies according to that. So what's the difference? Nothing. You cannot you know do justice to one by doing injustice to the other. That's not what it is. So you can see, we can see agriculture, we can see these are some people, you can see children, we can see maybe army together, and some this thing, we can see United Nations, we can see this construction work going on. So the South African constitution inspires democratics all over the world. A statement denounced by the entire world till recently as the most democratic one is now seen as the model of democracy. What made this change possible was the determination of the people of South Africa to work together to transform bitter experiences into binding glue of a rainbow nation. So that's we what we're talking about. Speaking of the South African constitution, let's see what Mandela said. The constitution of South Africa speaks of both the past and the future. On the one hand, it is a solemn pact in which we, as South Africans, declare to one another that we shall never permit repetition of a racist, brutal, and repressive past. So here, we can see that he's clearly saying that we should never, we shall never repeat or we should never let happen again the repetition of a racist, brutal, and repressive past. But it is more than that. It is also a charter for the transformation of a country into one which is truly shared by all its people, a country which in the fullest sense belongs to all of us, black, whites, women, men. So here he is saying that fullest sense belongs to all of us. So he are saying that, okay, we agree that our past has been racist, it's been brutal, it's been repressive, but let's also make this constitution into a transformation of a country which is shared by all its people, whether you're white, black, men, women, you know or anything, all should be treated equally. So just imagine the positivity, this thought, from a person who's been into jail for 28 years for just being for just protesting against what actually should have been given to them in the first place. This image captures the spirit of South Africa today. South Africans call themselves a rainbow nation. Can you guess why? the Of course, because they value a life of everybody, whether you're white, brown, native, mixed race, anybody, all are treated equally. Draw the story of South African struggle for freedom, remind you of the Indian national movement. Make a list of similarity and disparity between the two. Name of of course, it was Britain. Okay, relation between different communities. You can see we ours was a very diverse country. Leadership: Gandhi and Mandela. Okay, a party that led the struggle: African National Congress, Indian National Congress. Method of struggle. So here was, of course, we had other methods also. Other than, of course, some methods of India side were a little brutal, and whether you talk about some, there were have been some incidents, where there was killing. And if you talk about us, some of the instances, of course, they were there. And yeah, so these are the like differences you can see. And so the relationship between different communities was, as if you talk about the colonial time, then of course India has always been a diverse community, a diverse nation where it has many people from different religions and etc. But yeah, communal rights was never an issue in India, before independence, because everybody, there was no India as such, there was like the British India, we can say. And because everybody was ruled under different rulers and etc. So, but yeah, there was no hatred, but it was also not that there was like peace, okay, we can say that. Whereas in of course whereas if we talk about Africa, then of course we see that how the different this thing, there was segregation. And after the this Britain came there. Okay, so They divided, segregated people, but they all came together, united, and fought against them. Okay, so yeah. So now when we talk about constitution, this, that, and what are the values of a democratic country, and we talk so many things regarding it. But why do we need a constitution? The question that arises is this. So let's read about that. The South African example is a good way to understand why we need a constitution and what constitutions do. The oppressor and the oppressed in this new democracy were planning to live together as equals. It is not going to be easy for them to trust each other. They had their fears. They wanted to safeguard their interest. The black majority were keen to ensure that the democratic principles of majority rule was not compromised. They wanted substantial social and economic rights. The white minority were keen to protect its privileges and property. So now we know that there is independence. There is no more of British rule, so we have different communities in that country, and everybody is concerned about themselves. That of course everybody wants equal rights. So how do we give them? Of course there has to be some like proper thing which is followed, that nobody's left out. So then the role of constitution comes into play. After long negotiations, both parties agreed to compromise. There was compromise between both the previous rule by the British and the natives. The whites agreed to the principle of majority rule, and that to one person's. So they agreed to the principle of majority rule and one person, one vote. They also agreed to accept some basic rights for the poor and for the workers. The blacks agreed that the majority rule would not be absolute. They agreed that the majority would not take away the property of the white minorities. This compromise was not easy. How was this compromise going to be implemented? How are you going to implement something as difficult as this? Even if they managed to trust each other, what was guaranteed that this trust will not be broken in futures? The issue of trust has always been there, not only in even if you talk about like normal friendship. How if your friend breaks your trust, will it be easy for you to trust them back? So the only way to build and maintain trust in such a situation is write down some rules to of the game that everyone would abide by. For example, the games of soccer, we know what are the defenders supposed to do, what are they not, what all goalkeeper is allowed and what not. So there has to be some rules which has to lay down, and how rulers are to be chosen in future. The rulers also determine what the elected government are empowered to do and what they cannot. Finally, these rules decide the rights of the citizens. These rules will work only if the winner cannot change them very easily. This is what the South Africans did. They agreed on some basic rules. So here if we are saying that okay, now it's coming about trusting and how do we go about. So they said okay, we're gonna have some rules and regulations which are not going to, and some basic which shouldn't be changed in any case. They also agreed that these rules will be supreme, and though no government will be able to ignore these this set a basic of basic rules which is called constitution making is not unique to South Africa, and it's not unique to South Africa. Every country has diverse groups of people. Their relationship may not have been as bad as that between the whites and the blacks in South Africa, but all over the world people have differences and opinions and interests. Even in your class, somebody might like dairy milk, some might like Kit Kat. There is no common thing that everybody has to like the same thing. They might have different opinions and interests, whether they're democratic or not. Most countries in the world need to have these basic rules. These applies not just to governments. Any association that have any association needs to have its constitution. It could be a club in your area, a cooperative society, or a political party. They all need a constitution. Thus the constitution of a country is a set of written rules that is accepted by all people living together in the country. So this is important, it's a set of basic rules which is accepted by all the citizens who are living in the country. Constitution is the supreme law, and which determines the relationship among people living in a territory called citizens. Also the relationship between the government and the people. Approach a club or a cooperative or a union political party in your locality, get a copy of the rule book. It is also called the rules of association, and read it. Are the rules again according with the democracy? Do they give membership to any person without a discrimination? So you can of course look it in your neighborhood, that what are the rules. So let's see, here a constitution does many things. What is the rule about of the constitution? Let's see. First, it generates a degree of trust and coordination. Trust is very important even if you want to live in your day to day life, and coordination that is necessarily for different kinds of people to live together. Second, it specifies how the government will be constitution, who will have the power to take which decisions, power, the decision making is very important. Third, it lays down the limit. Even if somebody is given power, they cannot just be given power like anything. There has to be some limitations on the power, also. Because example, a monitor, the monitor cannot punish you. He can tell, he's a monitor, he's supposed to make the class quiet, but he cannot punish you. It is maybe the teacher might punish you, and he's not supposed to, because he's your classmate only. He's just been asked to do some duties, but that does not allow, there's a limit that the monitor of the class cannot punish his peer mates, peer friends, or this thing, classmates. On the power of the government, tells what the rights of the citizens are. Fourth, it expresses the aspirations of the people. What do the people of a country want, about how their society should be created. All countries that have constitutions are not necessarily democratic, and there are countries who have constitution, but that does not mean that they are democratic. But all countries that are democratic will have constitutions. But yes, if they are democratic, they will have constitutions. After the war of independence against Great Britain, the Americans gave themselves a constitution. After the revolution, the French people approved a democratic constitution. Since it has become a practice of all democracies to have a written um, this thing, constitution. So it is not necessary that a country, a democratic that people who have constitutions, they might be democratic. But if you are a democratic country, it has been seen worldwide, whether you talk about French, we talk about uh, America, or any democratic country that has fought for its independence, they all have a written constitution after becoming a democracy. So this is not fair. What was the point of having a constituent assembly if India, of all the basics were already decided? So if you are saying that all the basics are already decided, then what's the point of having a constitution? See, some basics cannot shouldn't be altered or changed, because it is the essence of that thing. Your culture, there's always modifications, and for growth and everything, new changes are always welcomed. But it shouldn't change the basic of virtue of that, why it was the constitution was initially made. It shouldn't change that part of the new model, which will be brought through the new modification or change.